All righty. Cool. Well, thank you, Jason, for that introduction, and welcome to everyone. I know this is a really busy week with a lot of exciting workshops happening all at the same time. So Jeff and I really appreciate you spending this next hour with us to talk about growth mindset. So my name is Jen Bourgoin. I'm the Mentor Program Manager at the Clubhouse Network. I've been on board for about a year and a half. Most of my role revolves around implementing our youth mentoring grant through the Department of Justice, but I also support TCN's mentoring efforts more broadly and serve as the geographic liaison to the southeastern part of the United States. And I am co-presenting today with my colleague, Jeff. Jeff, I feel like everyone always knows you, but I'll hand it over to you for an introduction.
Sure. My name is Jeff Arthur. I am the community liaison for the Clubhouse Network. I have geographic responsibilities, support the Best Buy Teen Tech Centers and Clubhouses on the West Coast, which includes Canada and South Africa. I head up the Reach Media Festival, as some of you may have seen, and also program manager for the EFTW program, which is our partnership with Facebook, Engineer for the Week, as well as help out with network events and activities. So welcome, everyone. All right. Well, it's great to see everyone. So, you know, I just have to take this moment to say, you know, of course, we usually are doing this in person, and it's good to see some of your faces that I haven't seen in a long time. So shout out to everyone who we would really be seeing, you know, face to face. So we would, I'd like to start this off by doing the icebreaker. You know, this session is about growth mindset and fixed mindset versus fixed mindset. And so we'd like to start off with a little activity here. If I can have everyone turn off their cameras, what we'll do is I'm going to read some statements, and then if you agree with the statement, I want you to turn back on your camera, all right? And there'll just be a couple scenarios that we'll go through. So, all right, everyone's camera off. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit. So afterwards, we'll ask for volunteers to talk about why you answered the way you did. All right. All right. The first question or scenario. There are certain subjects like math or music I'm good at, and certain subjects I'm bad at. If you agree, turn your camera on. Okay. All right. Lots of folks agree with that one. Okay, camera's back off. Only a small number of people will truly be great at sports. You have to be born with it. All right, a few folks. All right, everyone camera off. And then the last one, you can learn new things, but you can't really change your basic level of intelligence. Okay, crickets. All right, everyone can come back. And if we could just get some volunteers to talk about why you answered the way you did. And both Jen and I will kind of discuss with kind of field answers. So you could raise your hand in with the reactions, or just, okay. Patricia Marino.
Hi, Jeff.
How you doing?
I just came at the question about, you know, you got to be great naturally to play sports, and also you have your basic intelligence. I'm coming at that from a former teacher, and knowing how labels, when people teach to labels, they don't really look at the intelligence. Also having been with kids in athletics, knowing that the talent is only part of what's there. It's also the heart and the spirit and the work ethic, which makes a difference in sports. And I think in life as well. So I think, and also I believe that we don't know what the baseline is for everybody. We think we know what it is, but we really don't know. And sometimes young people don't know what their baseline is. So, and I think the baseline can always be improved. It's just because I've seen it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say more.
I think you've hit on a couple of the major points that we're going to dive into deeper today, one of which is how hard work and practice can really make a difference in anything someone puts their mind to.
Yeah, I just look at Michael Jordan. They said he couldn't play. He said, and then he went out and shot baskets every day, 500 every single day.
Yeah.
It's practice. I mean, talent was there, surely, but yeah. So.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Patricia.
Anybody else? Troy.
Yeah, I'm still somewhat stumped on the last question. I don't, if you'll allow me, I can't go back to the top two until I deal with that in my own psyche around, basically, to paraphrase, can intelligence be changed or adjusted by circumstances? I think that is an absolute powerful question to ponder. And I've just been sitting here thinking, I have so many opinions about it. And I think my first opinion is it can't be. I think if you lack intelligence, you're going to lack that, because I think that's somewhat innate. But I think you can be trained and taught and educated, and but I don't know that that necessarily changes your level of intellect from a social and emotional, state of being. And so I'm really stumped with how I'm just going to process that within myself. And I know there's probably not a right or wrong to that, but it's just so you all know, I'm just really, really stumped by that thought about, can intelligence really be changed? Because I know a couple of people who I've tried everything I could and they still lack intelligence. But hey, I just that's got me going here.
Yeah, thanks for sharing and being so candid about your answer. Yes, we'll talk afterwards and see if see what you think towards the end of the presentation.
Great.
Do we have time for one more? One more about why you answered the way you did.
I'm so curious. I can jump in.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say I can jump in about the first one about things that you're good at or not good at. For me, math has always been a hard one, and I'm actually dyslexic, so I see numbers flipped. So it's one of those things where I know, like, if I put in a lot of time and energy, I could probably improve at math, but it's something like there's an extra barrier there that makes it extra difficult for me sometimes. So I just wonder how that kind of plays into the things that we're good at or not good at. If it's just a matter of like, I'm not inclined to that, or if there are other barriers that we have to work doubly or triply hard to overcome that might make it more difficult and not seem like worth our time.
That's a good point.
Good point. Yep.
Well, thank you for facilitating this activity, Jeff, because I feel like it shows just how common growth mindset and fixed mindset statements are in our everyday lives. I don't know if I could count the number of times in my life that I've said something like, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at music. Even as Jeff and I were preparing for this workshop, we were putting together an agenda which had times associated with it. And so I was adding up the times on the call with Jeff, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not good at math. And so, it's a very common thought that aptitudes and abilities are kind of a static level, and there's not much we can do to change it. So as Jeff said, today we're going to be talking about growth mindset, the opposite of growth mindset, which is called fixed mindset, and how we can support youth in developing a growth mindset. So I'm actually going to share my screen here to show some slides. Share. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, cool. Let's present it. Okay, so welcome again to this workshop. We're really excited to have everyone together for this conversation. I know this is a topic both Jeff and I care a lot about, and we talk about and we think about. So we've been pretty much planning this workshop since last year's annual conference, and we were hoping to facilitate it. And I'm grateful we get a chance to do so today. So today we're going to be talking about growth mindset, why it's beneficial to have a growth mindset, how staff and mentors can support growth mindset. We'll watch just about the cutest video you'll ever see about growth mindset. We'll exercise our growth mindset muscles through an activity, and then we'll do some debrief and we'll have time for questions at the end. If you have questions throughout, feel free to put them into the chat box and we'll either answer them in that section or return back to them later in this presentation. So let's get rolling with an overview of growth mindset. So to put some definition to this, growth mindset is essentially the belief that a person's intelligence, skills, and abilities can improve through hard work, practice, effort, effective strategies, and support from others. People with a growth mindset think of the brain as a muscle. So most people would agree if you go to the gym regularly and you work out your abs, you'll get stronger. People with a growth mindset think of the brain similarly. If you put in time, effort, and energy, you'll improve at just about anything. People with a fixed mindset believe that intelligence is a fixed trait, sort of like your eye color. They believe people are born with a certain level of intelligence, and sure, you can practice, but there's not much you can really do to change that underlying level of intelligence. Those are the two extremes. Some people have a very firm growth mindset. Some people have a really strong fixed mindset. Most people are somewhere in between, somewhere kind of along this continuum. But one thing that growth mindset tells us is the more information we receive and more practice we put into this, we can change along that continuum. So there's been a lot of research about growth mindset, and I'm going to summarize some of the major points here. The research suggests that youth with a growth mindset earn better grades and perform better on tests. They're more open to taking risks and going beyond their abilities. They're more resilient when they make a mistake or suffer a setback. They have less aggression and stress. They work harder to improve their relationships with others, and they handle conflict more easily because they recognize their adversary as being able to change. So there's a ton of other research I could have put on this slide, and I'm going to cite this source later. So if you want to read more of the articles, you're welcome to return back to it. But you can see that the research seems to say that youth with a growth mindset perform better in learning environments. And this slide reviews why that is. So why do youth with a growth mindset perform better? Youth with a growth mindset see school as a place to learn and be challenged, whereas youth with a fixed mindset see school as a place where they either need to appear or act smart or avoid not looking smart. Youth with a growth mindset ask a lot of questions because they see it as the way to understand something. School is a place where they want to learn, and so asking clarifying questions and really digging deeper into a topic is the way that they'll do that. Youth with a fixed mindset avoid asking questions because they believe that it's kind of a sign of not being smart. Youth with a growth mindset see effort as a necessary part of learning. People learn when they put in practice and time and exert effort on a certain topic, whereas youth with a fixed mindset believe that effort is what you have to do to make up for not being smart. And then finally, youth with a growth mindset see setbacks and challenges as exciting. They think that you don't really learn when you're inside of your comfort zone, so you need to kind of stretch and be challenged in order to learn. So they look for those types of opportunities. They also are more likely to persevere through setbacks because they see setbacks as a learning opportunity in a place where they can clarify their thinking and improve. Whereas youth with a fixed mindset are more likely to give up because they see some challenges as being insurmountable, and they believe there's no amount of time and effort that can make up for the fact that they believe that they're not smart enough. So you can see when taken together why youth with a growth mindset tend to perform better. They ask more questions, they apply more effort, they are more likely to put themselves in challenging situations, and they also bounce back faster from setbacks. So that's a little bit about what growth mindset is. And now I want to talk about what adults in the clubhouse can do to support growth mindset in youth. So what can your mentors do, and what can you do as staff members? So there's a few strategies on the slide. The first is to praise effort and hard work over smartness or intelligence. So for example, I have a niece who's 7 years old, and she likes to perform magic tricks. So my husband and I get to see a lot of virtual magic shows these days. And when she performs a cool trick, you know, one of the first things I think to say is, "Oh, you're so good at that," or "You're a natural." But when I say something like that, what she might hear is, "I am good at this. So things like practice and effort aren't really necessary for me." So instead, I tried to reframe my praise to focus more on the effort and hard work that went into the performance rather than the performance itself. So, you know, kind of thinking the effort and the hard work are really what's going to help her succeed long term, both in the magic industry as well as in other areas of her life. The second tip is to reframe mistakes and failure. So a lot of people view mistakes and failure as something negative to just kind of move on from. So for example, I'm in grad school and I recently handed in a first draft of a paper, and it came back with a lot of feedback from the instructor. And at first I was embarrassed, but then you know, I should and can take that feedback as a learning opportunity to see where my thinking was flawed and how I can do better for the next draft of that paper. The third strategy is to share personal examples of growth mindset. And this is something we're going to do a little activity around later. So you can role model growth mindset by setting a goal, either within the clubhouse or in your personal life or in your professional life, and work towards that goal. You can also share your progress with youth along the way, including those setbacks and challenges. You know, a lot of people have a tendency to want to avoid those setbacks and challenges, but they're a really important part of the learning process. So normalizing setbacks and challenges can make a big difference in youth acknowledging that setbacks and challenges are okay. And then finally, the last strategy here is to use growth mindset language. So here are some examples of what growth mindset language and fixed mindset language look and sound like. So the first example here is, "It looks like that was too easy. Let's give you something a bit more challenging." This normalizes challenges and kind of insinuates that when something is too easy, it's time to take it to the next level and challenge yourself. Another example is, "That isn't the right answer. You don't understand it yet. You did so well. Keep working hard and you will do great again next year." So this comment kind of ties the concept of hard work to achievement. And then finally, the magic word "yet." So people who study growth mindset love the word "yet" because it insinuates that there's room for improvement and there's time to put in that practice and effort to improve. So if you hear someone say something like, "I'm not good at Scratch," you can add the word "yet" to that statement to imply that with time and effort, they can become good at Scratch. And then a couple examples of fixed mindset language are, "You are so smart," and "He's good at math, so he doesn't need to practice much." And before I wrap up this section, I did want to mention a really great resource called the Growth Mindset for Mentors e-training. It's where I got a lot of this information from, including the research studies that I cited earlier. It's about an hour-long self-paced module. So you can log in, do 15 minutes of it at one point, then 20 minutes at the next time. And the designed audience is mentors. So if you work with mentors at your site, this is a great training to pass along with them, especially during the pandemic when a lot of folks are virtual, so that they can do it at their own pace and learn about growth mindset. So I'll put a link to this in the chat so that you all have it handy. So I'm gonna pause there. Stop sharing my screen. I'll pause there to see just if that resonates with folks, if you're kind of, tracking and nodding along, or if any questions came up for you as I was speaking. And I'll look through the chat box and see if anything came up. But did that kind of resonate with folks? Did it make sense? Oh yes, I will share that resource link. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, we'll have another chance to do a Q&A towards the end of the presentation too. So as we go through the further activities, feel free to jot down any questions you have in the chat box and we can come back to them later. But with that framing, I'm gonna pass things back over to Jeff and I'll copy and paste that link in the chat.
Yes, so I would also like to admit that I was grown years old when I found out about all this growth versus fixed mindset stuff, and so I'm in this kind of entrepreneurship community here in Oakland where you share podcasts and readings and books and that sort of thing. And some of the information that I was learning in my community, I was figuring like, if I knew this when I was 5 years ago, or when I was, when I was a teenager, or let alone when I was a child, like this could have been, I could have changed a lot of things as far as learning projects, some of my goals. And so with that, I started passing some of the information and having these conversations with my own, with my son at the time. I have two now, as some of you might have seen. And long story short, we created this show between my son and his friend at the time, who's her mother is also in the group. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna watch this video. It's called, their collaboration is called The Lillionaires, kind of like the Little Millionaires. And the first episode happens to be on growth versus fixed mindset. And so what we can do is you can shut off your cameras, you can go to the link, and we'll come back in about 5 minutes or so. And so give everyone a chance to kind of view it and then come back and discuss it. All right. So that was the Lillionaires video. We are still working on growth mindset around this household. Just because we did an episode doesn't mean that anybody is, cured of fixed mindset around here. So including me. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Also, we will go on to the next activity and then kind of talk about your own experiences.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So now that you have some definitions from a couple different sources about growth mindset and fixed mindset, we're going to transition into an activity where we'll practice thinking with a growth mindset. So this activity is called the strategy box, and it's something that can be facilitated with youth too. I saw someone in the chat box mentioned how growth mindset works well with C2C programming, and I think this activity specifically actually pairs very nicely with C2C. So I'm gonna go ahead, share my screen again. And we will be using Jamboard for this activity. Some of you might be familiar with Jamboard. It's a really great collaborative tool. I'm gonna send you a link to this Jamboard in a moment, but I'll just walk you through it first. So I'm going to ask everyone to respond to 3 questions, which are located on 3 different boards. So you can kind of scroll through to see the different questions. The first question is, what's one thing you learned or succeeded at and the strategies that you used to get there? One thing you learned or succeeded at and the strategies you used to get there. So the example I wrote is, I ran a 5K. The strategies I used were to create a training program, ran 3 times a week, and I planned my eating so that I had enough energy to run. So once I send you the link, I'll ask that you create your own Post-it note. You can do that by clicking on the sticky note icon. You can type in your answer, change the color do cook. And then you'll save it. The one kind of tricky thing about Jamboard is that it always saves to the same place on the board. So you'll just want to click it and drag it elsewhere so that it doesn't get covered up and stacked up. The second board is the same question, but we'll ask you for a second example of something you succeeded at and the strategies you used to get there. And then the third and final question is, what's one thing you want to learn? And what strategies can you borrow from the other boxes, either yours or your own, in order to achieve that goal? So this activity is kind of designed to show that you can achieve anything, you can improve at anything through effective strategies and really creating a structured plan to achieve that goal. So we'll give you 5 or 6 minutes to respond to each of these questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll share the Jamboard link with you. Does that prompt make sense to everyone, or any questions before we dig into this? Let's hope this link works. So you can click that link and I'll give you 5 or 6 minutes to respond to those 3 questions. All right, well, thank you all for writing in those comments. It was really cool to see the different things you've all worked hard on and achieved in the past, and also what some of your future goals are and the strategies that you can implement in order to get there. So we're going to transition now into some small group conversations, and I'm going to ask that folks, we'll break up into breakout groups of about 4 people, and I'll ask that you discuss 2 prompts. And I'll also paste them into the chat box so you have them handy. The first prompt is to discuss your strategy box. So either, whether you wrote it or we're just thinking about it, I'm going to ask that you share, something you've succeeded at in the past, something you want to succeed at, and what strategies you could implement in order to achieve that goal. And then the second prompt that I'm going to ask you to discuss is an area of your life where you experienced a growth or a fixed mindset. So this might be, a topic that you have a fixed mindset about. For me, that's the topic of math. I just have it in my mind that I can't get better. Or it could be, a work situation or school situation in which you are interacting with someone who had a really great growth mindset or a fixed mindset and how that impacted you. So again, the 2 prompts are for you to discuss your strategy box and for you to also discuss a time where you experienced growth or fixed mindset. So let me put that prompt in the chat for you. And then I think Jason is going to help us put people into breakout groups for 12 minutes. Any questions before we head into the breakout groups? I just put the discussion prompt into the chat. Good to go? Okay, cool. 20-second countdown. Jason, is everyone back now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome back again. Hope everyone had some good conversations and got to make some more connections too. I know some of the nice thing about these breakout groups is you get a chance to connect with some old friends too. So I think what Jeff and I would like to do over the next 7 minutes or 6 minutes now is to hear a couple share outs. If we could get a volunteer or 2 to talk about a time they had a growth or experienced growth mindset or fixed mindset. And then we did see a couple questions in the chat box, so we'll try to answer those as well. If we don't get to them in this presentation, we'll do written answers and follow up with folks that way. But could we get a volunteer to talk about a time they had or experienced a growth mindset or a fixed mindset?
So I don't want to talk
I'll
too
do.
much. Oh, go ahead.
Jen.
Go Troy. Go ahead.
I shared that just like most of us, I wear quite a few hats, which consume my time. And I decided at this seasoned age that I would go and start working on my doctorate. I went in thinking I know I can't do this. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to try it just to see if, I don't know what I was thinking, but what I determined, what I found out about myself was that I have more patience than I thought. I have more focus than I thought. I self-motivate myself to get it done. So now I'm operating in a place that says, yeah, I can do this. And not only can I do it, I guess I've learned from that I want to also encourage others that may be considering it. Don't limit yourself to, I guess, that fixed mindset that because of these different things, you can't do something. Push yourself.
That's a great example, Troy. And I think it's a good example for everyone on this Zoom call, but also for members to understand that learning is a lifelong endeavor. And, when school ends doesn't mean that learning ends, and it can be really a continued journey.
Yeah,
definitely. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So I just said that when you guys were talking about like the fixed and the growth mindset, I realized that I personally kind of have a fixed mindset more than a growth mindset. But when it comes to talking to other people, like my teams or my coworkers, I have a growth mindset towards them. And I'm like, yeah, of course you can do it. But when it comes to me, I'm like, oh, maybe I can't do it. So this helped me realize that I need to kind of boost myself up the way I boost everybody else up.
Great.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, Elizabeth. Well, I know we had a couple questions come in too. So Jeff and I are going to do our best to respond to them. They were great questions, and we chatted while folks were in breakout groups to try to come up with good answers. So we'll do our best. The first one is a little easier perhaps than the second two, but Jeff, Mai asked, are we able to use these videos? I think, Mai, you were referring to the video Jeff shared in our mentor trainings.
Yes, you can definitely use that video in trainings or with your family or whatever. So.
Do we have a Johnny's permission, or are you just giving your permission?
No, I'm just giving my permission.
Okay.
No.
Parental permission.
He doesn't pay rent.
And then the second two questions are connected. So one of them was from Tamara at Gold Crown. Thanks, Tamara. Can you talk about growth mindset and how it relates to youth attention span and willingness to see projects through to completion? And then I think this next one is connected from Aaron. A lot of our work is interest-based. How do you get a member who isn't interested in a particular area to take a growth mindset and push themselves? So I'll try to start us out, Jeff, and if you have anything to add, please do so. So I would say growth mindset doesn't necessarily connect to interest in any direct way. One way to think about it, though, is around the challenge level, because if something is way too difficult or way too easy, it's a kind of a way for a young person to turn away from it and say, I'm not interested in it, when in reality, the issue is the challenge level. So that's one thing. I would say in the Clubhouse and Teen Tech Center spaces, youth should certainly feel empowered to follow their interests. And growth mindset is kind of more holistic to how they think about their abilities, more so than directing them to specific activities in the space.
Yeah. I'd also say that there's gold in that journey. So if they're working on some of those smaller projects and working on steps, and let's say they don't finish some of them, there's still nuggets within the steps that they did take, and you never know, those nuggets often lead to completing projects in other areas or further on down the line. So my advice would be to start with kind of shorter term projects, and once they build up a portfolio and build up confidence, they tend to go on to bigger projects, and there's growth mindset can be a part of all the steps along the way.
Yeah.
I hope that answers. All right.
And I think that brings us to time, and we answered, I think, all of the questions that I saw, at least in the chat box. So just wanted to give a huge thank you all for joining this session. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's a session Jeff and I first conceived and started talking about a year ago. And so it feels great to finally bring it to life, and really appreciate everyone taking the time to join.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Ooh.